Let's continue with this sutta, the realization of the three true knowledges. Last time we stopped at when the Buddha practices the extreme ascetic methods. Paragraph number 22, the Buddha stopped the in-breath and out-breath through mouth, nose, and ears. When he does this, violent winds cuts through his head. Number 23, the same thing, he does the same thing, stop the in-breath and out-breath through mouth, nose, and ears. So this time, violent pains arose in the Buddha's head. Next paragraph, 24, seems to be the same thing too. I'm going to read. 24, I thought, suppose I practice further the breathless meditation, so I stop the in-breath and out-breath through my mouth, nose, and ears. While I did so, violent winds carved up my belly. So this is the main differences. Now here in this paragraph, the Buddha gives a simile. Just as if a skilled butcher or his apprentice were to carve up an ox's belly with a sharp butcher's knife, so too, while I stop the in-breath and out-breath through my mouth, nose, and ears, violent winds carve up my belly. But although tireless energy was aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was overwrought and strained because I was exhausted by the painful striving. But such painful feeling that arose in me did not invade my mind and remain. Okay, so the previous two has something to do with the head. Violent winds, violent pains, and violent winds. The next one is affects his belly. Violent winds carve up my belly. Here, the Buddha gives simile of a butcher carve up an ox belly with a sharp butcher's knife. Next paragraph, Brother Waken, would you like to read?
I thought, suppose I practice further the breathless meditation. So I stopped the in-breaths and out-breaths through my mouth, nose, and ears. While I did so, there was a violent burning in my body, just as if two strong men were to seize a weaker man by both arms and roast him over a pit of hot coals. So too, while I stopped the in-breaths and out-breaths through my mouth, nose, and ears, there was a violent burning in my body. But although tireless energy was aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was overwrought and strained because I was exhausted by the painful striving. But such painful feeling that arose in me did not invade my mind and remain.
Thanks, Brother Waken. Okay, this time the Buddha did exactly the same thing and the exact same method. But this time, a violent burning in my body. And there was a violent burning. Let me highlight again. Here, the Buddha gives pretty graphic simile. two strong men would seize a weaker man and then with both arms and roast him over a pit of hot coals. And this is how the Buddha said there was a violent burning in my body, in the Buddha's body. Next paragraph, Sister Choi Kwon, would you like to read?
Now, when deities saw me, some said, the ecstatic Gautama is dead. Other deities said, the ecstatic Gautama is not dead. He is dying. And other deities said, the ecstatic Gautama is neither dead nor dying. He is an Arahant, for such is the way Arahants dwell.
Okay, thanks, Sister Choi Kwon. So this is like the deities were having a gossip. Oh, they take a look at the here is not the Buddha or the Tathagata. They call him the ascetic Gautama. Now, some deities look at him, say, "Oh, he's dead. The ascetic Gautama is dead." That's why. The other deity is saying, "No, he's not dead, but he's dying." Yeah. And other deities also said, the ascetic Gautama is neither dead nor dying. He's an Arahant. This is the way Arahants dwell. Yeah, but of course, this is not true. This is not the way the Arahants should dwell. Next paragraph, Sister Aikin, would you like to read?
"27. I thought, suppose I practice entirely cutting off food. Then deities came to me and said, good sir, do not practice entirely cutting off food. If you do so, we shall infuse heavenly food into the pores of your skin, and this will sustain you. I considered, if I claim to be completely fasting, while these deities infuse heavenly food into the pores of my skin, and this sustains me, then I shall be lying. So I dismissed those deities, saying, there is no need."
Thanks, Sister Aikin. So here the deities were, while observing that the Buddha is dying, offer him a food, heavenly infused, into the pores of your skin, and this will sustain you. So the Buddha thought, well, if I do all this fasting, but you infuse food in me, then it would look like I'm lying. So he said, no, I'm good. There's no need, the Buddha said. Okay, next paragraph is the Saikin. Would you like to read?
"28. I thought, suppose I take very little food, a handful each time, whether of bean soup or lentil soup or veg soup or pea soup. So I took very little food, a handful each time, whether of bean soup or lentil soup or veg soup or pea soup. While I did so, my body reached a state of extreme emaciation. Because of eating so little, my limbs became like the jointed segments of vine stems or bamboo stems. Because of eating so little, my backside became like a camel's hoof. Because of eating so little, the projections on my spine stood forth like corded beads. Because of eating so little, my ribs jutted out as gaunt as the crazy rafters of an old roofless barn. Because of eating so little, the gleam of my eyes sank far down in their sockets, looking like the gleam of water that has sunk far down in a deep well. Because of eating so little, my scalp shriveled and withered as a green bitter gourd shrivels and withers in the wind and sun. Because of eating so little, my belly skin adhered to my backbone. Thus, if I touched my belly skin, I encountered my backbone, and if I touched my backbone, I encountered my belly skin. Because of eating so little, if I defecated or urinated, I fell over on my face there. Because of eating so little, if I tried to ease my body by rubbing my limbs with my hands, the hair rooted at its roots fell from my body as I rubbed.
Okay, thanks, Sister Second. This is a pretty graphics and pretty graphic paragraphs. I think here, this one, let's see. Nah, this one also. Because of eating so little, my belly skin adhered to my backbone. You touch your belly skin, you can touch the backbone. If you touch the backbone, you can be touching the belly skin as well. Yeah, there's a few words here that I don't recognize. Let's take a look. Emaciation. Here it says the state of being abnormally thin or weak. So here the Buddha reached the state of extreme emaciation. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to define some of the unrecognized words, but then you get the idea how extreme was this practice. Next paragraph, 29. This is the it has Sister Akim read just now. Oh, okay. Sister Billy then.
Now, when people saw me, some said the ascetic Gautama is black. Other people said the ascetic Gautama is not black, he is brown. Other people said the ascetic Gautama is neither black nor brown, he is golden skinned. So much had the clear, bright color of my skin deteriorated through eating so little.
You can continue one more paragraph.
Okay. I thought, whatever ascetics or Brahmins in the past have experienced painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this. And whatever ascetics and Brahmins in the future will experience painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this. And whatever ascetics and Brahmins at present experience painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this. But by this racking practice of austerities, I have not attained any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Could there be another path to enlightenment?
Thanks, Sister Billy.
Thank you.
Okay, say this is when the Buddha, okay, the number 29 is when the Buddha's skin has deteriorated through eating so little. So some take a look, oh, he's black. Some take a look at him, oh, he's brown. Some take a look at him, he's not black, he's neither black nor brown, but he's golden skin. Finally, paragraph 30 is where he realizes this is the utmost painful feelings that he can experience. There's none beyond this. Yeah, he realized how extreme this is. Okay, so here the first line is in the past. The second line is in the future. And the third line is about in the present, but all are experiencing painful feelings. Yeah. And there's no comparison. This is the utmost, the Buddha said. Okay, and here is where the Buddha realized. But by this racking practice of austerities, I have not attained any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Could there be another path to enlightenment? In one way, this is the Buddha doing the experiment for us, so that we don't follow the same path, because the Buddha realized this is a futile practice. So in this way, we have to be grateful to the Buddha, so that we don't follow the same extreme austerities of self-mortification. But I'm not sure in the modern context, do you guys have you guys heard any of people who were so austere practicing this hard? Well, for me, my experience is like a lot of people have more tendency towards enjoying themselves, with the other extreme, enjoying themselves in sensual pleasures. Have you guys heard of people or know directly people who practice too hard like this? Yes, we can.
Yeah, because the people around you are lay people.
Exactly.
I mean, you might not have encountered. No, I mean, I myself have not yet encountered in person like people like ascetics or like spiritual practitioners who walk this kind of path either. Although I've seen some of them like on YouTube, and I've read about some of them like online, right? Like if we think of a close equivalent or a close similarity, perhaps like among lay people, you could think of mental disorders such as depression, anxiety. I'm thinking of something like bulimia, anorexia, and so on. So those are eating disorders where one is tempted to sort of harm one's body or to eat very, very little, or things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and so on. Those disorders might again cause us to like harm ourselves or to torture ourselves, even leading to suicide. So that might be a close similarity. Those might be a few examples, right? However, if we're talking about like spiritual practice or people who walk that path, there are such traditions. Okay, I don't know whether it's just one or multiple traditions in India, right? So there are people who still undertake such practices. So, for example, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of a practice called Jainism or the Jain path, right? So some of them do things like, for example, they pluck their hair from their head physically, right, or manually. So that happens, and they what else? They undertake certain practices, or they fast for a long time. So they fast for like 7 days or something. They don't take solid food for 7 days or something along those lines. So similar practices still exist. And of course, the most prominent one, or the most serious one, you might say, is fasting to death. So there are hundreds of people every year, if what I've read is correct. There are hundreds of people every year who actually undertake the practice of fasting unto death. So they stop eating and drinking, and then they would die in a few weeks' time, right? And what's more serious, perhaps, is like the community celebrates it. So as that person is nearing their death, the community, think of like the relatives, the family, and so on, they come together and have a somewhat like a religious festival. They would actually celebrate that person's virtue. Of course, in their eyes, they would view that as a very noble death, right? They would view that as a lot of courage, a lot of mindfulness, a lot of strong determination, and of course a lot of non-attachment, right? And so on. So from their perspective, that is a noble practice. So anyway, those practices still do exist. Even in modern times.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Brother Wicken. I think the example that you gave, bulimia and anorexia, it's a pretty good one. For those who don't know, bulimia is people who like force themselves to eat. So it's a disorder, force themselves to eat too much until their stomach bursts. Salekana. What is Salekana?
Salekana is the name of the practice. You guys can perhaps Google it
Okay.
to read more about it. Like fasting unto death. Fasting unto death. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there was bulimia eating. Recently I read in the news that they eat 6 liters of food and then they died because their stomachs burst. Yeah, some guy or some girl, I forgot. And
Overeating. Is that overeating? Oh wow, yep, that happens too.
6 liters of food, can you imagine? 6 kg, of course the stomach would burst.
There was once I heard on the news, like 2 boys or something, 2 boys or 2 young men, they were like competing against each other to see how many eggs they could eat. So they ate like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 eggs or so. I think they wanted to reach 50 eggs or something. And then they ate 30, 40 eggs. When they reached about 30 or 40 eggs, then they got admitted into the hospital, and then I think one of them died or something. Anyway, yeah, so that's another piece of news.
Okay.
Yeah, things like that. Weird things. Yeah.
Yeah, that feels so stupid. Anyway, and another example, anorexia. I think I read that some girls do it for like beauty purposes, but I don't feel like it looks beautiful at all. Yeah, but when people do this, usually it's not for spiritual practices, especially for lay people. But the example that you gave, another example is Jainism and those who fast to death. Yeah. That is perhaps close to this, but that is also for spiritual reasons. Thanks for sharing, Brother Waken. Yeah. Let's read one more paragraph before we end for today. Sister Singhui, would you like to read?
31. I recall that when my father, Sakyan, was occupied, when I was sitting in the cool shade of rose apple tree, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered and dwelt in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. Could this be the path to enlightenment? Then, following on that memory, came the realization. This is indeed the path to enlightenment.
Thanks, Sister Singhui. Take a look at footnotes number 18. P.S. The commentary explains that when the Bodhisattva was a child, his father brought him along to attend the ceremonial flowing festival of the Sakyans. The young prince's attendants left him under a rose apple tree and went to watch the plowing ceremony. Finding himself all alone, the Bodhisattva spontaneously sat up in the meditation posture and attained the first jhana, true mindfulness of breathing. Though the sun moved, the shade of the tree remained over the Bodhisattva. When the attendants returned and found the boy seated in meditation, they reported this to the king, who came and bowed in veneration to his son. Okay, so this is where the Buddha starts to discover the path to enlightenment. We will continue with this sutta next time. Any questions or comments for now? If not, let's do a dedication. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，实是常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a restful Sunday ahead. Thanks everyone for participating. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.